Hello once again, loyal viewers and outstanding subscribers. It is your friend here in winter, Wild Elf 26, here at Games Wild Elf 26. Remember guys, make sure you're still subscribed. Sometimes YouTube bumps people from subscription, so make sure, and if it has bumped you, please resubscribe. Alright folks, this is another walk and rant, and we're still in winter, and I was thinking about the Daytona 500, being that my channel comes from Central Florida. Alright folks, you know this walk and rants are about the topic and not about the video itself. Here we go. So anyway, we got the Daytona 500, and my upbringing, you know, I've always enjoyed NASCAR, I've always enjoyed Daytona 500, but there's different challenges, you know, different challenges, especially since, say 2019 or 2021, you know, so many people were forced to be hermits during that whole fiasco with the Fauci stuff. And most of you know what I'm speaking of, so I'm not going to go into that. But the Daytona 500, it's America's stock car racing. It's supposed to be the great American race. And for decades on decades, it used to be a testament of, you know, America's finest automobiles, usually out of Detroit, where the big three come from, you know. Ford, Dodge, GM, yeah. But, you know, over time and within the last decade or so, they've let in Toyota. And the whole catch on how they're letting in Toyota was that they had actually moved a couple of Toyota assembly plants over here to the United States. And so technically they were making them in the United States. And somehow this, and probably a lot of greasing of the palms, allowed Toyota to get into NASCAR. Now, if it's something like a Rolex series or a F1 race where it's international, where international cars are invited to compete, you know, that's one thing. But when it comes to what they call the Super Bowl of motorsports in America, the Daytona 500, I don't know, it always kind of itched me the wrong way that Toyota was let into NASCAR. It's obviously a Japanese car company, and pretty much a good guess that the majority of the profits, even from the American assembly plants for Toyota, are going back overseas to Japan. So, you know, that really kind of scratches folks the wrong way if they truly have a realization of that. Maybe some people don't realize that. Hopefully this was an eye-opener for them. But yeah, I was never too enthusiastic about Toyota being in NASCAR. That being said, a number of years back, I think it was Juan Pablo Montoya, he joined NASCAR. He'd done some F1, and I'm all for that, and I'll tell you why I'm for that. It's because even though the driver was international, when he joined on the NASCAR, we kind of expected he'd be driving local American motor muscle, you know, and see whether or not he could handle it in the heavy drafting, just falling behind in traffic, door handle to door handle racing that we've come to expect from NASCAR. And I'm sure that's a wildly different animal from F1 racing. That being said, he's not the only transplant from F1 racing that NASCAR has had over the years. You know, there was the fiasco with Danica Patrick and how certain established NASCAR icons felt about that. And I'm not going to go into those incidents. They're quite famous. You can find all that on Google. But we also had one of the great ones of F1, and we're talking, you know, a few decades back. Even Mario Andretti had competed, believe it or not, in NASCAR, and he made quite a good showing. And then he went back to F1 racing. And I think, you know, it was awesome to have Mario Andretti in NASCAR for a while. But to get my general gist across, you know, I like to see how the international drivers do when they're getting behind the wheel of American muscle on the track. And at the heart of NASCAR racing, it has always been stock cars. Generally, it was two-door stock cars. But a lot of these companies, they want to push the family sedans because of the NASCAR dads, the NASCAR family. And a lot of these family households, you know, they have somewhat meager incomes. And maybe they can only afford a new car that is a family sedan. You know, maybe they had to sell dad or mom's two-door sports car a while back, you know, having to make concessions, having to sacrifice some personal luxury to, I don't know, be able to pay the utilities, the mortgage, whatever. There could be college loans, you know, all kinds of stuff that people have to pay. Legitimate worries that adults have after they've gone through the paces, as it were. Paces, no pun intended there, but since we're talking about racing. But yeah, NASCAR, the great American race. And that's my major hang-up with Toyota on that. But then, you know, come to the 2020s, as it were, and now we're looking square in the eye at another major hangback or hiccup in the whole spirit, the whole heart of NASCAR racing. Not just the 500, but NASCAR racing. And this time period of when they were speaking about pushing it to hybrid electrics and possibly eventually going full electric in NASCAR. And I don't know, folks, maybe NASCAR should start a secondary division called Past Car. Yeah, Past Car. If any of you remember those sporting channel segments called Back in the Day, and they had a couple with Dale Jr., and I think the Dallenbacks did one, but yeah, they show you like some awesome races from a time long ago, you know, back when Cale Yarborough was still racing, and but what I was thinking is if NASCAR started another division and it was called Past Car, they could have cars that are brought there, you know, in their truck haulers, toy haulers, whatever. But they're vintage gas-powered street monsters, you know? Yeah, street beasts with incredible horsepower, and to have a certain type of safety requirements and stuff that's very similar to what NASCAR was around, oh, I don't know, 1978, 1983. And just have people compete that way, you know. And then they can judge by the ratings, whether it be on different satellite or cable services, or if it's a streaming service featuring NASCAR. They could have this on there too, and then they can judge later on after they get the viewership numbers. You know, do people want to see electric hybrid race cars eventually, or do they, you know, going back to some deliberately revamped gas-powered cars in a division that's supposed to give us back that era of what some people, I call it a vintage era, but you know, the trendy thing that everyone's jumping on these days is nostalgia. And I don't like to really use the word nostalgia too much because it sounds like a psychological problem. Instead of a moment of whimsy, it sounds like some sort of psychological decrepancy or something. So I use vintage. Vintage is good. Even retro is good, but vintage is better. All right, folks. So what do you think? Do you shudder at the idea of electric or electric hybrids as a new norm for NASCAR? Or would you like to see some sort of vintage racing set? You know, vintage racing division. I think that would actually save NASCAR, to tell you the truth. But I want to see what your thoughts are, folks, so let me know in the comments. And remember, at the top of the comments, before you actually leave a comment, press that like at the very top of the channel. And if you want to hear any more updates or new videos popping out, remember to hit that bell icon on my channel. That's, you know, supposing that you're already subscribed. If you're not, hey, now's a great time. Subscribe. There you go. Now hit that bell. All right, guys. All right, girls. All right, folks. Let me know what's going and tell me what you think. Catch you later. And of course, here at Games Wild Elf, wouldn't be a Wild Elf 26 video without close up.